The Galactic Hegemony's survey vessel emerged from hyperspace at the edge of an unremarkable solar system. Supreme Commander Vexthor stood on the bridge of the HSS Inevitable, his crystalline form refracting the light from nearby displays as he studied the third planet from the system's yellow star. His second-in-command, strategic analyst Zira, floated beside him, her gaseous form contained within an ornate environmental suit. Another primitive world, Vexthor declared, mandibles clicking with disappointment. Preliminary scans show widespread pollution, internal combustion vehicles, and primitive fission power plants. They haven't even unified their planetary government. Zira's form swirled thoughtfully within her containment suit. True, Supreme Commander, but there's something unusual about their military installations. Unusual? They're using chemical propellants and solid projectiles. I've seen more advanced weapons in museum exhibits, Vexthor scoffed, bringing up a detailed scan of Earth's largest military bases. That's precisely what's unusual, sir. For a species with their level of scientific advancement, their military spending is disproportionate. They maintain massive standing armies despite no external threats, and their training programs. Zira's voice trailed off as she projected a hologram showing human military exercises. Soldiers crawled through mud under live fire. Ships conducted complex maneuvers in violent storms. Aircraft performed impossible-seeming acrobatics at the edge of their operational limits. They train to fail, Zira continued. Every exercise is designed to push them beyond their capabilities until they break. Then they analyze the failure and do it again. It's inefficient, wasteful, but effective, Vexthor finished, his crystalline form dimming slightly as he processed this information. Still, they're centuries behind us technologically. The standard protocol is clear. We send a diplomatic delegation, demonstrate our superior capabilities, and they join the hegemony like every other primitive species we've encountered. The hegemony's diplomatic mission arrived on Earth 2 standard cycles later. The massive ship descended through the atmosphere, landing at a designated site in a region humans called Nevada. A delegation of world leaders gathered to greet them, their primitive projectile weapons and armored vehicles forming a perimeter that the hegemony representatives found quaint. Ambassador Lyric stepped onto Earth's soil, his photosynthetic skin drinking in the harsh desert sunlight. Greetings, humans. We come representing the Galactic Hegemony, a confederation of over 3,000 species. We have watched your development and deemed you ready for first contact. The human response was not what they expected. Instead of awe or immediate submission, the assembled leaders responded with measured curiosity and surprisingly pointed questions about hegemony governance, military doctrine, and technological capabilities. Your species seems unusually focused on military matters, Lyrics observed, trying to steer the conversation toward trade agreements and cultural exchange. General Sarah Chen, Earth Defense Force Commander, smiled slightly. We believe in being prepared, Ambassador. Humanity has a long history of unexpected challenges. Surely you understand that your military capabilities are primitive compared to ours. Lyrics gestured to the human vehicles and weapons. A single hegemony warship could. Perhaps a demonstration would be appropriate. General Chen interrupted smoothly. We're conducting exercises in the area. Your delegation is welcome to observe. Lyrics agreed, expecting to witness crude displays of force that would reinforce the hegemony's superiority. Instead, what followed shook the aliens' fundamental understanding of warfare. The humans demonstrated something they called combined arms warfare. Ground forces coordinated seamlessly with aircraft, while electronic warfare units conducted complex operations in the background. But it wasn't the technology that impressed the aliens. It was the chaos. They're deliberately throwing randomized obstacles at their own forces, Zira observed from the observation post. Equipment failures, communication breakdowns, surprise enemy movements. They're training to handle anything. The exercise culminated in a scenario where all modern technology was rendered inoperable. Instead of freezing or surrendering, The human forces smoothly transitioned to pre-industrial tactics, using hand signals and improvised weapons to complete their objectives. Fascinating, Zira's gaseous form churned with excitement. They don't rely on technological superiority. They assume everything will go wrong and train accordingly. Lyrics's photoreceptors narrowed as he watched a human unit construct a bridge from scattered debris, using nothing but basic physics and determination. Perhaps we should revise our assessment of Earth's military capabilities. Oh, General Chen raised an eyebrow. Have we impressed you with our primitive methods? The subtle emphasis on primitive sent a chill through Lyrics's photosynthetic cells. He suddenly realized that everything they'd been shown, every crude weapon, every simple tactic, had been carefully chosen. The humans weren't displaying their limitations. They were controlling what the hegemony saw. General, Lyrics said carefully, I begin to suspect that your species has other capabilities you haven't shown us. Chen's smile remained perfectly diplomatic. Ambassador, humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, and our own destructive tendencies. We've learned that true strength isn't about having the best technology. It's about being able to win without it. As the diplomatic mission returned to their ship that evening, Zira reviewed her findings with growing concern. Sir, I don't believe we witnessed a military exercise today. I believe we were given a warning. Explain, Lyrics commanded, his outer layers shifting colors with unease. Every scenario they demonstrated showed them overcoming the loss of advanced technology. They weren't showing us their limitations. They were showing us that our technological superiority doesn't guarantee victory. The implications hung in the air like a storm about to break. The hegemony had encountered thousands of species, but always relied on technological supremacy to maintain control. Here was a species that treated technology as a tool rather than a crutch, that planned for failure as thoroughly as success, that seemed to thrive on chaos and adaptation. As the diplomatic vessel broke atmosphere, Lyrics composed his report to the Hegemony Council. For the first time in his long career, he added a designation he'd never used before: species classification. Approach with extreme caution. Technological assessment may not reflect actual military capabilities. The humans had revealed almost nothing of their true capabilities, but they had demonstrated something far more dangerous: the ability to win even when everything went wrong. The hegemony would need to reconsider its entire approach to this seemingly primitive world. The Hegemony Council chamber buzzed with agitation. Hundreds of representatives from across the galaxy gathered to discuss the disturbing reports from Earth. High Marshal Ksul, Supreme Commander of the Hegemony's military forces, addressed the assembly from his hovering platform. These humans represent a potential destabilizing influence. His metallic voice resonated through the chamber. Their approach to warfare is chaotic, unpredictable. They actively seek out failure in training to learn from it. Such methodology is dangerous. From her observation pod, Zira, newly promoted to Chief Strategic Analyst, spoke up. With respect, High Marshal, perhaps we could use this situation to our advantage. The humans seem eager to prove themselves. I propose we invite them to participate in the Centennial War Games. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The War Games were the Hegemony's premier military exhibition, where member species demonstrated their capabilities in simulated combat. No primitive species had ever been invited to participate. You suggest we give them access to our military protocols, our tactical databases. Kixol's metallic scales bristled. A calculated risk. Zira's gaseous form swirled confidently. The games will allow us to thoroughly assess their capabilities while demonstrating our overwhelming technological superiority. It's an opportunity to humble them, or to identify potential threats before they develop further. 3 solar cycles later, Earth's delegation arrived at the Hegemony's military training facility in the Arcturus system. General Chen led a small team of human officers, their simple uniforms standing out among the exotic environmental suits and biosynthetic armor of other species. The first event was space combat simulation. The humans were assigned an outdated Hegemony cruiser, its systems deliberately limited to match Earth's technology level. They faced off against the Proxima Legion, notorious for their superior tactical algorithms and neural-linked crew. "Begin simulation," Kexel announced from the observation deck. The Proxima ships moved with perfect precision, their formation flowing like liquid metal through space. Their tactical computers calculated optimal firing solutions faster than organic minds could process thought. Victory seemed assured. Then the humans did something unexpected. They deliberately vented their ship's atmosphere. "They're killing themselves," someone shouted from the observation deck. "No," Zira corrected, her containment suit's sensors working overtime. "They're reducing their mass and radar profile. And they're using the vented gas as a sensor screen." The human ship, now running on minimal life support, executed a series of maneuvers that violated standard combat doctrine. They shut down all non-essential systems, letting momentum carry them through the debris field, while the Proxima ship's targeting systems struggled to get a lock. "Their tactics make no sense," a Proxima commander complained. "They're sacrificing shield strength for speed, deliberately damaging their own systems to create unpredictable radiation signatures. Our combat algorithms can't establish reliable targeting solutions." The simulation ended with the human ship, heavily damaged but still operational, achieving its objective, while the Proxima fleet's perfect formation had been scattered into chaos. The ground combat trials proved even more disturbing. The humans were given basic infantry equipment and pitted against the hegemony's elite shadow dancers, whose phase shift technology made them nearly invisible. Instead of trying to spot the shadow dancers, the humans created chaos. They set fires to disrupt thermal imaging, used simple tools to create electromagnetic interference, and deployed tactics that seemed randomly generated. "They're not even trying to win conventionally," Zira observed. "They're changing the parameters of the engagement to negate our advantages." The final event was a rescue mission simulation. Each team had to extract survivors from a hostile environment using only local resources. The advanced species deployed nanobots and energy shields. The humans used rocks, sticks, and what they called MacGyver engineering. "This isn't technology," Kexel muttered, watching humans create an atmospheric processor from salvaged parts. "This is barely controlled chaos." "That's exactly what makes them dangerous," Zira replied. "They don't think like we do. Every problem is an opportunity to improvise, every limitation a challenge to overcome. They don't just accept failure as a possibility. They embrace it as a teacher." The war games concluded with the humans placing surprisingly well in several events, despite their technological disadvantages. But the hegemony leaders weren't celebrating. During the closing ceremony, General Chen approached Zira. "Your war games are impressive, but they have a fundamental flaw." "Oh." Zira's gaseous form swirled with curiosity. "They assume warfare is predictable. That victory goes to the side with superior technology and better algorithms. But humans know better. Real war is chaos, and chaos." Chen smiled. "Chaos is where humans excel." Later, in a secure chamber, hegemony leaders reviewed the war games data. The humans hadn't just participated. They had mapped hegemony protocols, studied their tactical responses, and probed for weaknesses while revealing very little about their own full capabilities. They treated the entire event as an intelligence-gathering operation, Kexol realized. While we were evaluating them, they were studying us. Zira's final report to the Council contained a chilling addendum. The humans' primitive technology isn't a weakness. It's a form of camouflage. They don't need advanced technology to be lethal. They've mastered something far more dangerous: the ability to turn chaos itself into a weapon. The first shots weren't fired in space or even on Earth. The conflict began in the most unlikely of places, the hegemony's own computer networks. Supreme Commander Vexthor stared at the reports flooding his crystalline display matrix with growing alarm. Across dozens of hegemony worlds, systems were behaving erratically. Environmental controls went haywire. Manufacturing plants produced nonsensical items. Military targeting systems suddenly developed bugs that made them miss by exactly 17.23 degrees. "It's impossible," he muttered, his crystalline form clouding with concern. "Their technology is centuries behind ours. They can't possibly have penetrated our quantum-encrypted networks." Zira's gaseous form churned thoughtfully within her containment suit. "Sir, they haven't hacked our networks. They've introduced chaos into the systems that manage them." She brought up a holographic display showing the pattern of malfunctions. "Look at this. They didn't break in through our firewalls. They inserted random data packets through public interfaces, weather monitoring stations, trade manifests, tourist visas. Each packet alone was harmless, but together, they create cascade failures," Vex Thor finished. "But how? Our systems should have filtered out any anomalous data." "That's just it, sir. The data isn't anomalous. They're using valid inputs in invalid ways. It's like they've weaponized bureaucracy itself." The situation deteriorated rapidly. Hegemony ships arrived at Earth expecting an easy victory against its primitive defenses. Instead, they found their targeting computers plagued by minor calculation errors that threw off their aim by kilometers. Their advanced AI combat systems struggled to engage an enemy that refused to follow any recognizable military doctrine. In the Arcturus sector, a hegemony battle fleet discovered that their automated supply chains had been subtly altered. Instead of ammunition, their automated factories had been producing slightly incorrect replacement parts that would fail at precisely the worst moment. "Report from the front lines, Supreme Commander," a junior officer announced. "The humans are using our own civilian infrastructure against us. They're not trying to destroy our capabilities. They're introducing just enough errors to make them unreliable." Vex Thor's crystalline form vibrated with frustration. "Launch the autonomous combat drones. Their isolated systems should be immune to this interference." The drone fleet deployed, their quantum processors calculating perfect attack trajectories. But the humans had anticipated this too. Rather than trying to defeat the drones directly, they simply made themselves impossible to predict. Human ships performed maneuvers that made no tactical sense, deliberately exposing themselves to fire only to reveal that they were decoys made from space debris and minimal energy signatures. Ground forces used ancient radio technology and paper maps, denying the drones the electronic emissions they needed to build target profiles. "They're not fighting the drones," Zira observed. "They're fighting the assumptions built into their programming." The conflict reached its peak when the hegemony attempted to establish a blockade of Earth. Their ships formed an impenetrable barrier using overlapping fields of advanced sensors and weapons. It should have been impossible for anything to slip through. The humans responded by launching what appeared to be an entire asteroid field at the blockade. The hegemony fleet prepared to vaporize the rocks with their energy weapons, only to discover that the asteroids were not what they seemed. "Analysis complete," Zira reported, her form swirling with agitation. "The asteroids are hollow. The humans filled them with a mixture of industrial waste products. When our energy weapons hit them, the first beam struck an asteroid, instantly vaporizing it. The resulting cloud of metallic vapor and radioactive particles created a sensor-blocking haze that spread through the blockade formation. More asteroids followed, each specifically designed to react with hegemony weapons in ways that created electromagnetic interference, gravitational distortions, or simply good old-fashioned smoke screens. "They're not trying to break through our blockade," Vex Thor realized. "They're changing the environment to make our superior technology less relevant." Through this artificial chaos, small human ships slipped past the blockade. They weren't warships but civilian vessels, mining ships, repair craft, even space tourism vehicles. Each one carried what appeared to be normal cargo, but when analyzed as a whole, the manifest lists revealed a pattern. "Sir," Zira's voice carried an edge of admiration, "they're not smuggling weapons past our blockade. They're smuggling pieces of weapons, components that have legitimate civilian uses when separated, but when combined, The implications hit Vexthor like a quantum torpedo. The humans weren't just fighting a war. They were reorganizing the entire economy of their solar system to support their war effort, and doing it right under the hegemony's nose using the hegemony's own bureaucratic systems. In his private chambers that evening, Vexthor composed a message to the High Council. The humans have demonstrated a form of warfare we never anticipated. They don't attack our strengths or defend against our superior technology. Instead, they introduce subtle imperfections into our systems, create environments that negate our advantages, and use our own protocols and procedures against us. They aren't trying to win battles. They're making it impossible for us to fight the kind of war we're good at. Zera added her own addendum. Most concerning is their ability to wage war without apparent military action. Every civilian transaction could be part of a larger strategy we can't detect. Every piece of data they send could be part of a pattern we won't recognize until it's too late. They've turned our entire civilization into a potential battlefield, and they've done it without firing a single shot in anger. The hegemony's Central Intelligence Division occupied an entire artificial moon, its quantum processors dedicated to understanding and predicting the behavior of various species across the galaxy. Dr. Angsvith, the division's lead xenopsychologist, faced the assembled council with his tentacles twisted in frustration. "We cannot predict them," he admitted, his bioluminescent patches pulsing with distress. "Every psychological model we've developed falls apart when applied to humans. They consistently behave in ways that defy rational analysis." High Marshal Kuxol's metallic scales rippled with irritation. "Explain." "Take their response to the Proxima siege," Angsvith gestured, bringing up a holographic display. "When we cut off their supply lines to the colony, our models predicted they would either abandon the position or launch a desperate counterattack. Instead, they turned the entire colony into what they call a victory garden, and started brewing alcohol from native plants." "How is this relevant?" Kuxol demanded. Zera's gaseous form swirled thoughtfully. "Because when we finally breached the colony's defenses, we found a population that wasn't just surviving. They were having what humans call block party. They'd turned a siege into a community celebration." The display shifted to show footage from the colony. Humans could be seen sharing home-brewed beverages, teaching children to grow food in makeshift gardens, and organizing what they called apocalypse fashion shows, using creatively repurposed survival gear. "This pattern repeats everywhere we engage them," Angsvith continued. "They don't just adapt to adversity. They seem to find genuine joy in overcoming it. Our psychological warfare tactics are particularly ineffective because humans already assume everything will go wrong and treat it as an opportunity for creativity." The council chamber filled with uneasy murmurs. A species that enjoyed solving problems was one thing. A species that turned survival situations into entertainment was something else entirely. "There's more," Zera added. "We've detected an unusual phenomenon in their communication patterns. They're using something they call memes to share tactical information." The display showed a series of seemingly nonsensical images with text overlaid. "These appear to be jokes, but they're actually encoding complex military insights. They're teaching each other combat tactics through humor. Our AI systems can't interpret them because they're based on layers of cultural context and intentional absurdity." Angsvith's tentacles writhed in agreement. Their entire information-sharing system is based on what they call inside jokes, complex cultural references that only make sense if you understand multiple layers of context. They can communicate battle plans in what appears to be meaningless entertainment. The display shifted to show human military operations. "Observe their command structure," Zera pointed out. "They have a formal hierarchy, but in practice, their units operate on what they call commander's intent. Leaders tell them what needs to be accomplished, but leave the method up to individual initiative." "That's chaos," Kuxol protested. "No military can function without precise orders." "And yet," Angsvith countered, "their forces consistently achieve objectives we thought impossible. They treat our carefully planned strategies as suggestions and respond with improvised solutions that somehow work better than they logically should. The evidence was undeniable. Footage showed human units converting civilian infrastructure into military assets with remarkable speed. A cooking oil factory became a fuel processing plant. A children's toy manufacturer started producing drone components. Even their entertainment industry was repurposed to create sophisticated propaganda that doubled as encrypted communication. Their adaptability goes beyond mere survival. Zira observed. They actively experiment during combat. Each unit learns from failures and immediately shares that knowledge through their informal networks. They're not just fighting us, they're treating the entire war as a learning experience. Ankh-Svith's final report to the Council contained a disturbing conclusion. The humans' greatest weapon isn't their technology or even their tactics. It's their fundamental psychology. They don't just accept chaos. They embrace it. They don't just overcome challenges. They enjoy them. And most importantly, they can transfer this mindset to any population they encounter. The implications were clear. Human colonies that had been cut off from Earth didn't collapse. They developed their own unique solutions to survival. Human prisoners didn't break under interrogation. They started underground resistance movements and improvised weapons from prison facilities. Even human civilians seemed to treat war as an inconvenience rather than a catastrophe. We're not just fighting their military, Zira concluded. We're fighting their entire cultural approach to problem solving. Every human, from their warriors to their artists, is capable of turning any situation to their advantage. They don't need advanced technology because they've mastered something far more powerful, the ability to find opportunity in adversity. As the Council absorbed these revelations, a new report arrived from the front lines. Human refugees from occupied territories weren't behaving like conquered people. Instead, they were spreading their ideas to other species, teaching them to improvise, to question rigid protocols, to find humor in hardship. The psychological contagion was proving more dangerous than any conventional weapon. They're not just resisting us, Ankh-Svith realized with horror. They're changing how other species think. If this continues, the very psychological foundation of the hegemony could be undermined. Not by force, but by the simple human idea that chaos is not an enemy to be feared, but an opportunity to be embraced. The Grand Archive of the Hegemony, a vast structure that contained the accumulated knowledge of 3,000 species, had never been so quiet. Supreme Commander Vexthor stood before the High Council, his crystalline form dim with exhaustion after months of conflict with humanity. "We must accept an uncomfortable truth," he began, his voice resonating through the chamber. "Our fundamental understanding of warfare, civilization, and progress has been challenged by these humans. We have been measuring advancement by the wrong metrics entirely." The holographic displays activated, showing scenes from their conflict with Earth. We saw their chemical rockets and combustion engines, and thought them primitive. We saw their divided planetary government, and thought them chaotic. We saw their constant military preparations, and thought them paranoid. Zira floated forward, her gaseous form steady within her containment suit. But we were wrong. What we saw as primitive was actually profound adaptability. What we interpreted as chaos was actually dynamic stability. What we dismissed as paranoia was actually a deep understanding of something we had forgotten. The displays shifted to show human achievements during the conflict. Civilian ships converted to military vessels within hours. Ancient radio technology repurposed to defeat quantum encryption. Simple mechanical devices performing tasks that the hegemony required advanced AI to accomplish. "The humans have taught us something vital," Zira continued. "True advancement isn't just about developing better technology. It's about maintaining the ability to function without it. Every piece of technology we create becomes a potential vulnerability, a dependency that can be used against us." High Marshal Ksol's metallic scales shifted uneasily. "Are you suggesting we abandon our technological advantages?" "No," Vexthor answered. "We're suggesting we learn to be more like them, to maintain our advanced capabilities while also preserving the ability to operate without them. The humans don't reject technology. They simply refuse to become dependent on it. Dr. Engsvith slithered forward, his tentacles arranged in a pattern indicating deep thought. There's more. Our psychological studies have revealed something extraordinary about human innovation. They don't just solve problems. They deliberately create them for themselves to solve. The display showed footage from human entertainment, games, sports, puzzles, competitions. They intentionally place obstacles in their own path, restrict their own capabilities, and impose arbitrary limitations on themselves. Not out of necessity, but for the sheer joy of overcoming challenges. This extends to their military doctrine, Zira added. Every human soldier is taught to assume everything will go wrong. Their training scenarios aren't about achieving perfect performance. They're about maintaining effectiveness when all advantages are lost. They don't train to win. They train to adapt. The council chamber filled with murmurs as the implications became clear. The hegemony had built its civilization on the principle of solving problems through technological advancement. The humans had built theirs on the principle of solving problems through adaptation and innovation. We've received reports from worlds where humans have settled, Vex Thor continued. They're not just surviving in environments we deemed uninhabitable. They're teaching other species their methods. Species we classify as primitive are developing hybrid technologies that combine our advanced science with human ingenuity. The displays showed examples. A pre-industrial species combining ancient water wheel technology with quantum power cells. A silicon-based life form learning to communicate through improvised mechanical signals. A gaseous species developing solid-state tools through creative use of magnetic fields. The humans aren't just a military threat, Zira concluded. They represent a fundamental challenge to our understanding of progress. Their influence is spreading, not through conquest, but through the simple demonstration that there are other ways to solve problems. A new hologram appeared, showing a message from Earth's unified command. General Chen's face appeared, looking tired but determined. We understand that the Hegemony Council is meeting to discuss the future of our conflict. We propose an alternative. Instead of trying to force each other to change, perhaps we could learn from each other. The message continued, outlining a proposal that would have been unthinkable months ago. The humans offered to share their adaptability training, their methods for maintaining technological independence, their techniques for fostering innovation. In exchange, they wished to learn from the hegemony's advanced sciences, not to copy them, but to understand them. They don't want our technology, Engsvith realized. They want to understand the principles behind it so they can develop their own solutions. They see our advanced technology not as something to covet, but as proof that certain problems can be solved. The council deliberated for days. Finally, a decision was reached. The hegemony would not just make peace with humanity. They would fundamentally restructure their approach to civilization. Every member species would be encouraged to maintain both advanced and primitive capabilities. Innovation would be valued alongside efficiency. Chaos would be recognized not as a threat, but as an opportunity for growth. We thought we were advanced because we had solved so many problems. Vex Thor addressed the council one final time. The humans are advanced because they never stop finding new problems to solve. Perhaps true civilization isn't about achieving perfection. It's about maintaining the ability to face imperfection with creativity and determination. As the new era dawned, the hegemony's official archives added a new entry. In encountering humanity, we discovered that we had become so focused on advancing beyond our limitations that we had forgotten the value of working within them. The humans reminded us that true strength lies not in having the best tools, but in being able to work with whatever tools are available. Their gift to the galaxy was not technology or knowledge, but a reminder that the greatest power of any species lies in its ability to adapt, to innovate, and to find joy in the endless challenge of solving problems.